So today I get the pleasure of introducing Union Gospel Mission CEO Phil Altmeyer, but it's more than just an introduction, and so it's also an exciting update to share with many of you who have been around for a while. Phil has been involved in the mission for over 38 years. We talked at noon today. We don't give him credit until August for 39 years. And at last year's gathering, Mike Drew stood here and shared with you that Phil had submitted his 2-year notice of his intention to retire. And so that was kind of a downer to start the event last year. And but he also just shared his passion for what God's doing at the mission. And then since that announcement, Phil has been meeting with the board's executive continuity committee and working on what a transition plan might look like. And as a result of those discussions, tonight we get to announce that Phil's 2-year notice formally has been rescinded, which is pretty cool. And with some organizational adjustments and considerations, he's going to remain serving in the capacity of CEO of UGM with no established retirement date at this time. We're confident he intends to retire someday. But really to honor Phil's heart for the mission, as well as his heart to honor his right role as husband and father and grandpa and aspiring fisherman, the board has approved 2 significant changes for Phil. He will retain overall executive responsibility for leadership at the mission, but the board has reduced his workload to allow him to step back from operational duties and focus on strategic projects, on partner relationships, and on leadership development within the staff at the mission. And secondly, Phil has transitioned his operational leadership to 2 executives that have been connected to the mission, involved in the mission for quite some time. And so, Joanne Zychek and Steve Ellison, you will see here tonight. They'll be sharing a lot in the program, and so they have assumed a lot of the day-to-day operational functions that Phil took care of. So with many thanks for those 38, not yet 39 years, and now, Lord willing, a few more years to come, would you join me in welcoming Phil?
Thank you. Thanks, Ed. Ed wants me to retire real soon so he can catch up in the number of years he's going to serve the mission too, so thanks. Well, good evening. So I didn't express, I'm getting a feedback, I didn't express at noon, but our food service department prepared all that, did all that, and I'm so proud of them. They do such an excellent job, and I can tell you this, one of the hardest positions we've had to fill in the last 2 years is in the area of food service. And God has brought us some incredibly dedicated, wonderful people. So let's just express our appreciation. I don't know if they'll know, but I thought they did an outstanding job. I also wanted to say that we're grateful to Valley Assembly for allowing us to use this facility. Mike Drew, as the president, served on our board for 8 years, and he's now a pastor here at this church, and he just stepped down due to his commitment and his role as pastor here at this church. And so I wanted to express my appreciation. We have approximately 24 board members. He's given incredible leadership, and I've always appreciated sometimes you have those intense moments, those issues you deal with, and he's always brought his center back to Christ and keeping this ministry and the leadership on track. And I appreciate my board and their leadership, and I also appreciate our staff and the commitment they make each and every day, and you as volunteers. And I want to take a minute, if you're staff, you're a volunteer, or you're a board member, would you stand up? I'd like to recognize you and thank you for your dedication, your heart, and your service. Yeah. I can honestly say, in all these years, I'm always amazed how God raises up leadership, lays it on the hearts of people to come serve at the mission. And it's the staff and their commitment day in and day out. I remember the first time there was 8 of us, we'd sit around a table, do family gatherings together. Now with 250, I don't know who has kids and I don't know who they are, but it's a lot different. But God has raised up an army, literally, to have an impact. And our volunteers, we depend on you, and you're so faithful, so thank you. And many of you are here tonight that financially are partners that make everything you're going to hear tonight possible. And so thank you for your partnership as well. We're going to hear tonight and see different aspects of the ministry and hear some stories of lives that have been impacted. And I want to tell you, we can do this. I have to remind people we receive 0 government funding. And you say, what is that about? And the more and more I see what's happening in our country today, I'm convinced and thankful that our board, next year we're celebrating 75 years. I'm thankful that 74 years ago, they said no government funding. And as I look at government funding, it's pouring in, and they cannot do the things that we do, deal with the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And I ask people this all the time. When you think of God and his character, what is it? And people, what do they say? God's love. He's justice. He's mercy. He's righteous. But I also want to remind you that God was a God, that his character was work. Ed, that's why I'm not retiring. No, just kidding. He worked what? 6 days, then he rested, right? Why is work important in our life? It restores dignity. And I love the fact that we can have safe, clean shelters, that we can ask people to do a chore, to give back, do some work, so that we do not literally take away their dignity, we restore their dignity. And I love the fact that we can do what government programs cannot do, and that is hold people accountable. Because I believe if we are going to impact our city, it's going to happen because of compassion and accountability and consequences to choices that helps move people out of addiction and homelessness. When I think of the state of homelessness in our city, I want to give you some staggering statistics to ponder and think about. The Department of Commerce estimates in the Spokane County region there are 16,000 homeless people, and in the city, 2,000. Just recently, an organization came into town. They will be releasing their results here shortly, and the survey will show that over 50% of our people are from outside of this area of the country. I am reminded, my staff just sent me an email 2 days ago about a woman who showed up at our crisis shelter. She was from Butte, Montana, put on a bus out of the ER hospital in Butte, Montana, sent to Spokane. You may say, well, why Spokane? Did she have family here or know anyone? No, they just sent her to Spokane. And so when I think of this region, when I think of the benefits of this state and often what happens, this is a magnet for homeless people. And I could spend a minute and say that our crisis downtown, it's estimated that 400 to 600 people are homeless on our streets in downtown Spokane. And if you go back and look at the consequences of where all that started, it started really when it boomed, not just with, what was that thing called? Oh yeah, COVID. Yeah, it didn't just start there. It really started with Camp Hope. And you will get me on another story if you get me on to Camp Hope. So I will move on and tell you that what we have with 400 or 600 people on our streets in downtown, you see it. It's a picture of crime, garbage, drug use. It's not pretty. And what is the solution? The awareness is obviously there, but what is the solution? And I believe it's this: compassion with accountability and consequences that move people in the direction of change so that our community can remain a safe place for families and businesses to thrive. And that's what I believe you provide and your part in supporting the ministry that we do, a safe, healing environment where people find hope for the future. Tonight, I was excited and I invited Sheriff Knowles to come and share with you and tell you a little bit of what is happening in our community today. Because as you know, we have a fentanyl crisis. And so when I invited him, he said, I'd love to come. And then I said, check the date. And he goes, uh-oh, I'm at a conference, can't come. But he did say, I'd love to sit down and do an interview. So I'd like you to hear from our sheriff what's happening in our community. So if we can roll that, let's watch it. Sheriff Knowles, first of all, I appreciate the job that you do, you and your staff. You represent our community in a great way. And so thank you for the service that you provide.
Well, thank you for saying that. And it's an absolute honor to represent this community and to be the sheriff of a community that I've grown up in. It really is unfortunate that I could not be there with you guys. And I want to thank the folks who made it for being there to support the Union Gospel mission and taking part of this important work.
One of the things I was going to ask you to share, if you wouldn't mind sharing, is we know today that fentanyl's become a major issue in our surrounding area. What's the problem looking like?
We are in a tougher spot as a community than we've ever been, where the drug use, the drug trade is concerned. And back in the early 2000s, we saw a lot of meth labs and a lot of methamphetamine in our community. But as time marched on, the drug trade in Spokane has evolved and changed. With this opioid epidemic, there are challenges that methamphetamine didn't present. It affects people physically, is highly addictive. People become physically dependent on it. When you go into severe physical withdrawals, when you don't have that drug that your body demands you to have. I mean, this isn't a oh, I'd sure like to have it, like you might want lemonade on a nice hot summer day. This is I have to have this, and I will do whatever I have to do to get my next dose of this drug. And they will do anything they believe they will die without it. And so that's how fentanyl has kind of changed the game, and it's lethal.
So you have also to combine the cost way down and the availability. Once you take it, I understand you're addicted, you can become addicted instantly. What about statistics on the number that are dying?
Well, I think it was in 2018 we had 45 overdose deaths in Spokane County. And I may be off a little bit on those numbers, but it was well under 100. To where in 2024 we had so far confirmed over 330 overdose deaths. And I want to provide some context with that number. There's been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Narcan doses delivered every year that save people who have overdosed and are dead. And Narcan is saving them. And so that 330 number could be much higher if it wasn't for the advent of Narcan and naloxone.
A lot of times we kind of put fentanyl, the impact on homelessness or crime in our city, but it affects families as well. And I've heard your story, and I thought it'd be good just for your own personal journey that you went through with your daughter to share a little bit about that and how it impacted you. You mind sharing that story with us, John?
Yeah, I don't mind at all. And I speak about my experience with my daughter, Sarah, with her permission. And she has openly shared her story. You know, she's a really, really fantastic young woman. Played travel softball, played for one of the top teams in the area, one of the top teams in the state, one of the top teams in the country. When she turned 17, she decided to quit playing sports and started Running Start program in college and started a job. And we thought everything was going really, really well. And then one day we found out that she was, kind of behind mom and dad's back, seeing a young man who was about 24 years old. Eventually it became apparent to us that she wasn't going to follow the rules of our household. She was introduced to fentanyl by that boyfriend. At one point her boyfriend overdosed in our home. That was the last time I had to have the conversation with my daughter, saying, you have to choose. You have to choose him and the drugs or us. and you're more than welcome to stay with us, but he is not. And she chose him. And so, you fast forward that for a couple of years, and she saw a lot of different things while she was addicted. A lot of very, very traumatic things happened while she was on the street and bouncing between, the couch surfing that goes on when you decide to live that lifestyle. My daughter's personality entirely changed. Loved her to death, but she was so mean when she was using. And it was two and a half years ago now when she came to a family function at Christmas. And I didn't even recognize my daughter. I just remember thinking, your daughter's going to die. And will you be able to say you did everything that you could do to prevent it? When you're in that moment when you're burying her, did you do everything you could? And I knew that I hadn't at that point. So very next morning, I went out looking for her on my way into the office, and I went and found her. She was sleeping on the floor of a shop down in the city. I had the help of some really good friends who worked in the mental health care field. And we got her committed because she had made some statements that led us to believe she was suicidal. And she knew she was going to hurt. She was in a lot of pain. And I remember when I was telling her that the police were coming, and she said, "Dad, I don't want to go because it's going to hurt." And I remember very distinctly telling her, I go, "Well, honey, I'm sorry. I can't take that from you." As a father, as somebody who cares about another person, we so much want to take their pain if we can. But there are some things in this world that we can't, but it changed her. And she is such a different person. My wife and I are different people after seeing her go through this, and then, having to support her coming out the other side and watch the physical change back. And have it be a success story that she did get to blossom into this great woman who is now helping people, who understands human nature in a way that a lot of people don't. Work with other people who are in recovery to help those who are still lost. And we do need more supports in the community for people who are in addiction, people who are recovering. Every time I get a chance to talk to people, and number one, destigmatize talking about addiction and destigmatize the idea that we should somehow think differently about somebody who's in recovery. I mean, somebody who's in recovery, to me, they're my heroes. If people have any kind of sympathy or empathy about what it would take to overcome addiction and go through not only the physical but the emotional challenges that come with kicking that addiction, it's nothing short of heroic. And we should be doing everything we can to help support people who are making those choices. And that's what I love so much about what the Union Gospel Mission is doing. We're meeting people where they're at. We're asking them to expect more of themselves. And that's what changes people. It's about each individual person getting what they need to make the choice. I mean, I think you and I both recognize, I didn't get my daughter into recovery. My daughter decided to change.
Exactly.
I tried to get her to a point where she was able to make that decision, and I think that's important. And that's what we can do as a community. But we have to make every effort we can to help people make the choice to get clean.
I realize that it's God's the one that changes a heart and draws a person back to who He created them to be. And I hope people have hope for their children that are maybe out there, and hope for those that are out on the street, because we see change every day. So thank you for taking the time and joining us.
It's my pleasure, anytime.
We are blessed to have Sheriff, and his journey there's much more to that story, but his journey is no different than many other people. Sometimes it'd be interesting, even, I'm not going to do it a show of hands, but almost every family has been touched by addiction. And today, fentanyl has had a devastating impact on lives. And so I'm just grateful that we can be there. I want to reiterate, it is a miracle when we understand addiction. And if I was the enemy, He designed a great plan, because when you're on drugs, you don't think clearly, you can't even make good decisions, and like he said, you wake up every day and that's all you want. And he watched his daughter literally disappear. And it's a miracle one day when they wake up and say, I want something different. And I agree with him. The heroes are those that say, I want it, and do the hard work, because it is hard. At this time, I want to take a minute and just introduce two special people, vice presidents here of the ministry. And I'm excited that at this point in time, God has brought these two people so to release and give leadership to our ministry. Joanne is vice president of ministry programs. She has served with our organization now for 13 years. She was the director over in Coeur d'Alene and has been there since day one, and they opened it, the Recovery Center. She gets and understands the DNA of our culture and has demonstrated faithful, consistent leadership, and I appreciate the wisdom that she brings to the team and will provide for all of our shelters. Steve Ellenson is Vice President of Ministry Resources. He has been with us 4 years as our development director, and before that he was with the Ministry of Campus Crusade for Christ for 30 years, ministering to college students on campuses. And he's brought to our ministry a wealth of organizational leadership and will be tremendous asset to, again, the culture of who we are, developing the leadership. We now have 250 staff, and believe me, there is a lot to develop and continue to press into. And I feel blessed that God has brought these two people to provide leadership for our ministry. And tonight we're going to get to hear from them as they MC and lead us through the evening. So let's welcome them.
Phil, thank you very much. It really is an honor to be in these roles. I am very grateful for it. It's an honor to serve with an incredible staff team, with the volunteers that God has raised up, and with a generous community here in Spokane, in Coeur d'Alene, in the Lewis and Clark Valley. We're very grateful. It is our hope to bring hope and healing to people, to our neighbors who are struggling with homelessness and addiction.
It really is a true honor to be in these roles and to be a part of this ministry. We were talking earlier about fentanyl and drugs being a driving force in people experiencing homelessness. And what we've also found is it's more than just drugs. There are people who are just struggling with poverty and life emergencies, domestic violence, and we have seen an increase in mental health and even physical health. And so tonight we get the opportunity to hear from a variety of people coming from a variety of backgrounds.
Yeah. You know, it really does touch all of our lives. At least we see homelessness and addiction on the road when we drive by somebody. Maybe we have a friend that has experienced it, maybe a family member, or maybe we ourselves have walked that journey. But we can all take responsibility in some way to help address this issue. You know, there's many organizations here in Spokane that are seeking to do something. The question is, what is UGM's unique role? And really it's this: helping people find a pathway out of homelessness in this way by dealing with the root issue. Why? Why are they homeless? Why is there addiction? That's what UGM is all about. So with your partnership, we can create building blocks for people to have stable lives. So we're gonna take a tour of UGM and our ministry, and we wanna begin today by looking inside the Women and Children's Shelter up on Illinois here in Spokane. You're gonna meet Tracy, our director, and Diana, a woman who fled for her life. She found safety and support at UGM. So let's meet them.
My name is Diana. I'm from Texas, and I'm a resident at UGM.
What was the circumstance that brought you here?
I came up to Lewiston to be with my sister. I ended up in the hospital with pneumonia in Lewiston. I was unable to stay with her. They had no shelter at all. And so basically I was outside in this. When I was living in Texas, I was going through a bad situation. I didn't think at one time I was ever gonna be able to get away from him. And then my medical, Texas wouldn't help me do nothing, not a thing. I knew I was gonna have to leave even if it was just on my feet. The fire department here made sure I got to the door because I literally gave up when I got off the bus. I didn't have a phone. Nobody knew where I was talking about, so I just sat down. And God was willing that day, and He brought me here, and it's been nothing but promise.
What was your experience like showing up here for the first time?
When I came through that door, I knew that everything had changed.
What was the check-in process like for you?
All my belongings were placed safely. I went to take a shower. They gave me new clothes that I got to keep.
Oh, yes.
And then gave me food while I was sitting in the chair over here. They made sure I had something to eat.
What kind of case management and support are you getting, and how has your life started to turn around?
Oh my goodness, y'all. 8 months I had my disability, and I'm also getting my birth certificate.
What does that enable you to do next?
First, to get a bank account. Second, to say who I am. I know my identity here, but out there, I don't have one.
Getting the bank account is helpful because now you're getting disability.
Yes,
and you have
ma'am.
nowhere to put that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. What's it like staying in the dorm rooms?
They're warm, comfortable. You always have fresh bedding. And then we have a big shower room. They supply us with towels, cutely rolled, and they'll wash your laundry too.
They do.
Yeah, once a week.
Even your clothes?
My clothes, yes,
All right.
ma'am.
There's a lot of downtime here.
Oh, yes.
Having to do a chore, how does that help with your mental state?
It gives you something to do, first off. Do you feel like you are helping for us to receive what we get?
What about your self-esteem?
Oh, it's went up 100%.
Yeah.
Now I know who I am. I can make my own choices, and I can say no.
When you come into the dining hall and you're sharing a meal, what do you experience? What do you feel?
That you're like home at your family's house and
Yeah.
eating a Sunday dinner or, you know, having a Tuesday meal. There's always a lot of different food. We're just not stuck in the same routine of the same food all the time.
Right.
We always get a wide range of vegetables on there, and then we always have 6 choices of dressing.
Isn't that great?
We're pretty spoiled.
We
Oh,
are
yeah.
spoiled. So the clinic staff here, they've been able to walk alongside you.
They've always done anything I've asked. If it's check my diabetes, sugar, making sure I have all my medicines, that nothing's missed. You know, they don't mind you asking them for their opinion. This is like one of the greatest benefits that you could have.
We have clinic 2 times a week. How's that experience been for you?
There's more than enough people in there to help you. I mean, it's not like one person trying to do everybody's job, and they actually pray for you. They don't just let you leave without feeling that they helped you.
When you came back to UGM after your surgeries, like what was that experience like?
Oh, they were gonna make sure that I was okay. If I have a doctor's appointment, they're like, when?
How are you feeling today?
Today I'm feeling great. I really am. I have a lot to be grateful for. I have 7 grandkids back in Texas that are gonna see their grandma. It's a dream that I can actually.
Yeah.
I don't have to think that it's not gonna happen anymore.
The pathway out of homelessness. The pathway out of homelessness, you know, it's not the same for everyone. For Diana, who you just saw in the video, she is not pursuing our 2-year life recovery program. But what she is doing is getting the help that she needs so that she can go to the next place. But other people recognize the need for the long-term recovery program. They are looking for a deep transformation of the heart. And they're choosing to stay with UGM for 2 years in the Life Recovery Program. So Joanne, tell us more about that Life Recovery Program so we understand better.
I love the acronym of Life Recovery, living in freedom every day. we have an opportunity to provide hope. I love seeing the men and women begin to dream again, to be excited, to recognize who they are, how Christ has made them, to understand the why behind some of the behavior, to address the trauma, and to actually walk out recovery in relationship with healthy relationships, healthy individuals, and learning to love, trust, and depend on their Lord. And as I've moved in this position as vice president, I've had to also let go of my role in Coeur d'Alene, which was very hard. But I have the opportunity to introduce the new director, and that is Dottie Heberer, and she's an amazing woman and a blessing to pass the baton on to. And so Dottie, tell us a little bit about the Life Recovery Program. Give us some more details.
Our Life Recovery Program is a safe healing environment where women and children can come and experience the love of Jesus and hear the gospel. It's also an opportunity for them to go into their deep heart wounds and receive some inner healing. It's a great place for them to begin to heal broken relationships and start to develop healthy relationships. It's also a place where they learn to develop new coping skills so that they don't have to turn to substances. We do that through a three-pronged process. It's grace, truth, and time. And so that's why it's 18 to 24 months. We have 5 phases. The first phase and second phase is where they're doing that heart work that I mentioned. Phase 3, they're still doing the heart work, but they're beginning to look outward, and workplace readiness begins to be part of their journey. In phase 4, they begin to enter into our practicum or work, and meanwhile, they're receiving all the support and staying in the house, but yet beginning to integrate back into society. And then phase 5 is they begin to live independently and plug into our Aftercare program. And so Bianca is someone who has completed phase 4, congratulations, and she's entering into phase 5. So I'm so glad that you are here with us today and sharing your story.
I'm so glad to be here.
So Bianca, would you mind sharing a little bit about what your life was like before entering the UGM?
Yeah, Dottie, my life was complete chaos, stuck in addiction. I was stuck in the cycle of addiction, withdrawal, and relapse. I had my fair amount of success, my fair share of success early on in life, but I was very prideful. I didn't know God, and I like to take risks, and all it takes is that one decision to completely destroy your life. I tried fentanyl, and within a year of trying fentanyl, I had lost my job, lost my home, lost my job, and I knew all about Camp Hope. That was my stomping grounds for a really long time. So I relied heavily on criminal activity at that time, which landed me in jail, which was a miracle because that's where God was able to actually reach me and pretty much put his hand out and tell me that he had a way out of the darkness that I was living in if I was willing to work for it. So I actually ended up hearing about UGM through a former resident that was going back to the program, and she had so much praise about the program. And so I ended up going to the orientation, and I loved it, but God actually moved mountains in that situation too, because the prosecutors didn't want me to go to the program. They wanted me incarcerated, but the judge is the one that allowed me to go into the program, and she actually said that she's seen tremendous success with UGM, and she thought it was the only way that I would be able to have a real life change.
I believe God showed her. Yes.
Thank you.
I believe God showed her something in you as well. So can you share with us, Bianca, what is it about the UGM program that really brought you some life change?
I think the thing that makes this program so different than other ones is the longevity of it. The fact that every day I woke up for 20 months in the Lord's house, choosing to work on my recovery. The only thing that was being asked of me was to be the best me that I could be and choosing to work on my recovery, which I don't think I'm ever gonna have that opportunity in life again. It's such a blessing, and now even moved out, that's my mindset.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So can you tell us some of the classes or tools that were most impactful or significant for you?
Yes. In phase 1, we have a class called Untying the Knots, which is taught by Joanne. It's a class where we dig deep and we do the heart work to kind of figure out why we did what we did. And I also was able to heal traumas that I didn't even realize I was still carrying. And then case management was very beneficial to me later on in the program. I was able to set up a bank account and a savings account. I was able to buy my own car. I learned how to build my credit. I actually started program with a credit score of 510, and I'm leaving program with over 700. So, yeah. Thank you.
So Bianca, tell us what's going on in your life now and what do you hope for?
My life right now is so peaceful. It's so peaceful and so great. I actually went through probably the hardest thing I'll ever have to face in my life. While I was in program, I lost my mom, and she was like my best friend. But luckily, I was in UGM, and I learned how to trust God and lean on Him in the hard times. I know that God works all things for the good I know God works all things good for those that love Him, and I really lean on that in the times of hard. I just moved into our Aftercare housing apartments. I just got hired on as staff as a UGM member, or as the UGM thrift store. And I volunteer weekly with the R8 department back at our shelter.
So incredible. What is one of your hopes?
My hope for the future is that I can be an inspiration to others, that life change is possible if you're willing to put the work in and trust God.
So great. So you mentioned coming on staff at the thrift store. So can you share that experience with us and how that was impactful for your recovery?
Yes, working at the thrift store has been such a blessing for me. I had a lot of anxiety re-entering the workforce because of the gaps in my employment, and now I have a criminal background that I have to try to explain. But the thrift store leaders, they didn't judge me on my past, they judged me on who I was and who I was becoming. I love the fact that it's faith-based and we get to pray every single morning. And our leaders are so inspiring. Actually, a lot of our managers at the thrift store are girls that have graduated the program, and our store manager is so qualified, and she has so many skills, and she chooses to serve the Lord every single day, and that's so inspiring to me. I also love it because it's a platform where I can share my story and thank the customers and the donors for what they're doing and what they're investing in with UGM. They're transforming lives.
So good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca. There's no greater testimony than a transformed life, and you can just see the power of Jesus just did a miracle in you. So thank you for being a light to us and sharing your story.
Thank you, Dottie.
Appreciate it.
It's been a real joy watching your journey, to see you walking in those doors, hurting, and to see you fighting for your recovery. That's what I have seen, and I have seen you be a leader. I'm excited to see what God's going to continue to do in your journey. You know, you were talking about the thrift store. I'm curious, when did you start actually working there?
I started in phase 2, and I entered into our employment training opportunity.
What is that? Tell me.
It's a position, it's a temporary position that girls in the program can get hired for, and it's pretty much on-the-job training, where we learn valuable work skills for future employment. And it was really an amazing platform for me to start saving money, to build my credit, and to be ready to move out when it was time. It was such a blessing.
You know, we were, for the longest time, our men and women did not go to work until they were in phase 4 and they began a business practicum. But the thrift store provided an opportunity for our residents to not only have job training, like you said, even to have a history, right? To be able to say, okay, this is what I've done, and the continuity, but it's also provided so many of our individuals are dealing with debt. It helps them to pay off debt and then have money when they're ready to move out, which is really exciting. And so that's been great. One of the things I've appreciated about, you mentioned, you know, that you saved money, and one of our classes, our case management classes, you get the opportunity to learn how to be financially responsible. And that's kind of hard to do when you don't have any money to work with, right? And so, Steve, as our Vice President of Ministry Resources, can you share how else is the Enterprises being impacted, not just for job training for our residents, but there's so much more?
Yeah, I am so grateful for the enterprises that the Lord has allowed UGM to develop. And you're right, Joanne. It is a great place for our residents to re-enter the workforce, to receive job training, to experience working in a safe, recovery-centric environment. It's also a place where UGM is receiving long-term support from the enterprises. And so we're so grateful for what the Lord has put together. You know, in the Inland Northwest, UGM, we have 3 thrift stores, one in the Valley, one downtown, and one in Coeur d'Alene. And then what we have is the UGM Motors on Sprague. Maybe you've shopped there, maybe you've donated there. We have a tool and supply warehouse, and it's the building just east of the Motors. And you know what? It's open to the public. So if you like tools or supplies, I'd encourage you to shop there. And then the last thing that we have a new upholstery business, and it is being housed in the Motors in the back, and they are focusing on rebuilding RVs and boats. And it's been in place for about a year. And it's a tremendous opportunity to see individuals stepping in and having an opportunity. I'll just mention in the lobby, maybe you've already seen it, but there are different booths that represent the Motors, the thrift stores, upholstery, and the tool warehouse. And so I would encourage you to go look. And maybe as you walked in, you saw the 2011 Dodge.
I saw it.
Yes.
I called my son-in-law.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe you saw the motorcycle in the back, the dual sport motorcycle. The one that I looked at was the 65 Ford, and I was told that somebody put a 460 in there. So maybe it could be yours tonight. I'd encourage you to go. Go to the tables and have a look. So let's give everybody a look inside our UGM Enterprises, where we're going to meet Lee Brown, the director of our thrift store operations, and former program resident Ken Van Zant. Ken found healing and hope and new opportunity through working at our UGM Enterprises. Let's meet them.
So Ken, life recovery program.
Well, funny story behind that. I didn't want to be in recovery. I've had 30 plus years of addiction because of my molestation and thinking God gave up on me. I was just here for a night or two to stay, just so I could go get a job and honestly get right back in my addiction again. And then Joel Marsh asked me to pray about it, and I said, about me, so why should I pray to him?
Right.
Finally, I decided one night, it was a Saturday night, I actually dropped my knees and started praying. And that Monday, I went to Joel Marsh and I says, you know what? I need the recovery.
Right.
So what do I need to do now?
How has the recovery program impacted you?
It's given me the tools to survive in my recovery. It's given me the tools to go forward in my recovery. It gives me reminders to look at. And the biggest impact it's given me is it's given me God. I didn't know that he loved me. I didn't care that he loved me at the time.
Right.
But the reality is now I know he does. And that's a lot of what I've learned through the program is those tools and that God loves me.
So Ken, we're here at the Vocad classroom. Can you tell me what goes on here?
Pretty much the same as, I would say, the same as starting in school. In the middle of our addiction, we lose that. It's all about survival. And this kind of slowed us down and put us back into the bookwork and the acknowledgement that there's things to know out in real life with a clean head. And pretty much like we do when we're kids. You know, you got to go through schooling to get in the job.
Can you tell us what a practicum is and how did you determine what practicum you were going to be a part of?
I worked all the way through my addiction. A lot of guys didn't. And so the practicum actually gets their feet wet, gets them out there, gets them in the workplace, and it teaches them that, hey, is this what you want to do or is there something else?
You had worked for our thrift store years prior, and different guy. Honestly, you were my best performer on the back dock, but that one element, that dependence on Christ, was lacking. So I was thankful that I was able to have that honest conversation with you back then, and to see where you are now. It's just, man, God is good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what a transformation. And I owe it all to God. And God's given me the UGM to give me the tools and to get me in the right spot. And it's not me, not at all.
Amen.
All the glory goes to Him.
Amen.
So, yeah.
Praise God. So now we're here again back at the thrift store. Tell me, how was the training and the culture for you when you're a part of the thrift stores?
It was a blessing. I was able to actually work and be sober, which I've never done that in my whole life. I've actually always been on drugs. My whole goal was cash, 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 all about money. I've made 6 figures before.
Right.
And then what I'm making now, it's like a big difference, but I'm more blessed. And so
Right.
I feel more hope now. My recovery is A1 most important. I would have never said that years ago.
You're saying those years that you worked making 6 figures don't compare now that you're working and honoring God in what you do?
Absolutely. Absolutely true.
Awesome.
Yes.
Can you share with us, what is the huddle?
It's actually a great time. I mean, I look forward to that every day. We get to talk about God. We get to have a devotional with everybody speaking up and just praising God and praying. And then on top of that, I get to go out and tell my story. I get to tell them how much I love Jesus. I get to tell them how much God has done for me.
Awesome.
I get to do that.
Also, we have this gift in kind process where the men and women in our shelters get to come in and shop.
I was in the shelter. I started out in the shelter, and I was able to come and shop and get clothing that's gift and kinded to me to help me get clothes. Because when I first went to the shelter, I wore the same thing every day until I was able to get into the clothing room and do all that. So it's a blessing all the way around.
It is
and I
a
just
blessing.
love being part of that.
We're now at the Union Gospel Mission Motors. So tell me how your transition took place to the Motors.
I loved my journey every since being here. You know, it's a great thing. We have morning devotionals like we did there. I get to talk about God all the time. I get to actually tell my story, and I love doing it. Here's my desk right here, and I put my booklet on it, so I get to give every one of my customers my story.
It's probably helpful too that you guys are up front with all the issues that may come along with the car, so you don't have to be dishonest.
Well, that's the best part of it, is that I can give full information. I can tell them everything about the car, and when they drive off the lot, they know 100% that that's the car they wanted, because we give them everything that they need to buy the vehicle,
Right.
which is awesome.
Tell me about the culture here at the Union Gospel Mission Motors.
I feel very comfortable because there's other people who went through the program and have been very successful here. I've been here for many years. It's kind of just following the trade of doing that and just understanding, wow, God's really got us in a great place right now.
Would you recommend this program for someone off the streets?
Absolutely, absolutely I would, because I've seen a lot of guys go through the recovery, and they used to talk about all the other recoveries they went through and they didn't do anything. This has got God involved, God in the center, and that's what we all need. And so without having Him, we wouldn't have recovery.
Ken, I'm just so blessed to be a partner with you. I'm so thankful that we created this brotherhood, this friendship with Union Gospel Mission as we get to serve the community together. So thank you for your time, and God bless you, brother. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for giving me your time. And all the glory goes to Him, not me.
Amen.
While Ken was in the program, he not only developed tools that helped with his recovery, gaining his life back, but he also experienced a transformation of the heart. And in our enterprises, it not only offered him work, but they offered community. I want to say that again. They offered community, and that is such an important part of maintaining a person's road to recovery. Joanne, tell us more about community.
You're right, community is so important for recovery. We have found that we want to stay in relationship, continue on this journey with residents who finish the program for 5 or more years. Studies have shown that if you can have recovery for 5 years, that you have an 85% chance of maintaining that sobriety and recovery for the rest of your life. And that's where our Aftercare program comes into play. And I want to shift over and introduce you to these two individuals, Joseph Davidson, a former resident who is in our Aftercare program, and Kirsten Ridgewell, our Aftercare supervisor. We just changed the title recently. Welcome. Kirsten, can you share a little bit about Aftercare? Tell us what is the actual program all about?
Awesome. Thank you, Joanne. First of all, I'm just so grateful to be here tonight because I love to come and share the good things that God is doing. So thank you all for being here and being part of that. And of course, our lovely Bianca and Dottie just shared with you about our life recovery program. And then Joanne just talked about the significance of that reaching the 5-year sober mark. And so Aftercare, we get to be a big part of helping our graduates and residents reach that 5 years of sobriety. So Aftercare men and women can reach that 5-year milestone through a lot of love and a lot of support. So our staff and volunteers get to come alongside them through support and accountability and loving on them and being part of their lives. We get to help them reach that 5-year mark. So it's a pretty special thing to get to do. And part of getting there is housing. So I'm kind of looking out on our crowd and knowing where we're at. Between Spokane and Coeur d'Alene, I'm guessing that's where the majority of you are from, and you know firsthand how difficult it is to find affordable housing in our area, and that can be for anybody. And so imagine being someone who's just finished our life recovery program, and they've lived 2 years surrounded by lots of love and accountability and support, and then it's time to move on from there. And before we had Aftercare housing, they were finishing program and then had to all of a sudden make that jump to finding affordable housing, living on their own. And we found this really wasn't working great for a lot of people and that they needed more support. So UGM decided to establish Aftercare housing at all 3 of our centers. So now we have it at the men's shelter in Spokane, the women's shelter in Spokane, the women's program, and in Coeur d'Alene. So it's pretty incredible the difference that that's made in our graduates' lives. So very special to be part of that and see that connection and support and accountability for them. In addition to housing, we get to do a lot of other fun things in Aftercare. We have recovery meetings. We do sober fun together. We continue with their support team so that they're not out on their own. So it's a process and a combination of so many things. It's being loved, supported, physical needs, spiritual needs, and we see a difference in people's lives. It's pretty incredible to be part of. So Aftercare, when I think about Aftercare, I think of it as a bridge that helps bring our residents and our graduates from a life recovery transformation over to living in freedom for the rest of their lives. So it's a definite special part, especially for me. And Joseph is going to get to share with us a little bit, so very honored that you're here with us tonight. And you are going to absolutely love his story, and you're going to wish that you could have heard him share even longer, but I'm glad we get a little time. So Joseph, share with us what Aftercare has meant, or kind of your background, what led you to coming to UGM. So,
thank you so much, Kirsten, and thank you, Joanne, and just thank everybody for being here. I'm just really grateful to be here, and what a special time, and just a special group of people. Just so appreciate the support. But yeah, before UGM, I had a lot of years of, functioning in my addiction. I had work, family. I had a home. I was mainly focused on that, but I had really no foundation. A lot of years of turning my back on God. And that just, over the years, it turned from more and more addiction and less functioning. So it just got to a point where, especially the last couple of years leading up to come to the mission, just very much isolated and alone, and just, really wrapped up in that darkness and in those addictions. So I just thank God for bringing me to UGM. I didn't do it on my own, but he got me down there, and I just, I'll always be grateful for that.
Yeah. We're really glad that you were brave and that you came, and it just makes me think of all the men and women that I get to serve, and I work with the bravest men and women that I know. It's really incredible, that step to come to UGM, so we're really grateful that you did. So share with us a little bit about the recovery program and how that changed your life.
Yeah, recovery was amazing, I think the biggest thing was, and it was new to me, but being in the body of Christ, being surrounded by caring people, having people to talk to at all times. And it's hard work there, but we do have, time that we're given to process through things, to communicate and to work through things. So in a way, it's sort of like a timeout. It's, there's no worries about the outside. Well, not a lot of worries about the outside. We're focused on what we're going through in there. So just the time that we're given, and the fact that that's given to us is just a very transformational thing.
Yeah, awesome. So now that you've graduated from our program, last year, wasn't it? A year ago? Yeah. What does life look like for you now as far as work, church, housing?
Yeah. I'm very content. Life right now is very busy, in a good way. I'm working full-time at the Davenport Grand, and that's another provision that was provided to me through UGM. That was where I got my practicum in program, and it's just a really neat opportunity to be hired on after completing my practicum. So living at Aftercare has been great. There's been more and more community. We have Bible studies, recovery meetings, and lately we've been having in-house meals together. So just getting together and breaking bread and having the encouragement from men that were ahead of me in program and behind me, just to see different guys come together and eat together. Things like that have just been huge. And, like a personal thing for me is I don't talk on the phone very often, but I do text. A few years ago, my phone was just pretty much completely blank, just a lot of dead conversations. And now it's full. Just every day there's, communication, encouragement, there's things going on. So it's much more about people. So it's ongoing work, still using the tools from program, reaching out, and there's always people that I can ask for help.
Awesome. When I was talking with Joseph earlier at the noon program that we had, his mentor walked up and started chatting with us. And Joseph told me that he still, a year after completing program, connects every week with his mentor. And this is someone that he can reach out to, that he trusts, that he can share his heart with. They go do fun things together, and they have deep conversations. And they were both just sharing with me how meaningful that relationship still is, even after a year. So just after talking with him and talking with you and hearing about that, I think it's going to be a lifelong relationship. So that's just part of that support. And that was really special hearing you guys talk earlier. So, and then how has Aftercare, the Aftercare program, made a difference for you now that you're graduated and moving on?
Absolutely. Church, that's been huge. Having my home church, getting to know people there, building friendships, people reaching out. My home church is Jacob's Well, and so I have Pastor Eric and his wife, Liella, and they've stayed connected. They've just really set an example to make it feel like family. So, having a home church has just been amazing. Hearing his sermons are great and at times challenging. So that's just been great. And then as far as Aftercare, for me, it's been so cool. It's been a continuation of program. Originally thought, I was going to be on my own. I sort of had in my mind, okay, I'm done with program. I'm on my own now. But that's not the case. Thank God. Still have my mentor, my recovery team. There's a lot of volunteer opportunities. So, taking the steps to be out there living my life, but there's still that community and that connection. So definitely grateful for that foundation.
Yeah, so good. And then as far as your housing goes, so you're in the men's aftercare housing, and you have your own apartment, and you get to live independently. But how does that work with as far as the connection goes to program and having independent living? How do you feel like that helps you instead of just living off in an apartment somewhere else?
Yeah, it's just been huge. It's a reminder that we hear a lot in program. You cannot do it on your own. You cannot live life on your own. And then it gets to where you don't want to live life on your own. So it's a reminder of staying connected in community. So just so grateful for the folks there. So, you know, the affordability, you touched on the market out there. I don't know a whole lot about the market, but I know it's pricey. So the affordability and the opportunity to save up for the future has been a recovery tool, and that's been super helpful, that affordability, the safety, and there's a real sense of like built-in accountability in fellowship and in friendships. You know, there's that built-in accountability where if something's going on with one of us, we sort of see it, and so there's a chance, an opportunity to reach out and talk to each other when we're struggling, because we all have struggles. So yeah, it's been huge.
I love that you touched on the friendship aspect, because as an aftercare coordinator and supervisor, I get to oversee events and classes and recovery meetings and things like that. But most of the time, I feel like I can just sit back because of the friendships that are developed between the ladies, and in your case, between the men's, because they're the biggest encouragement and support to each other. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that, and yeah, that's so good. And then I wish we had, like I say, another hour to hear your story and your journey, because it's really touched me hearing it today. But we do have to wrap it up. So kind of to sum it all up, what would you say to the donors and the volunteers that made it possible for you to go through the program and be where you're at right now?
Absolutely. Just thank you so much for making, you know, all of this possible. During my time in program, I didn't always see what was going on behind the scenes. As time has gone by, I've seen a little bit more and more, and I'm able to look back now and I'm just so grateful for the direct impact that volunteers and donors had directly on my walk, and they still do, and on my recovery. It's just been so helpful, and you know, being invited here and to talk has been such a blessing too, because it had me thinking about the other men. You know, I mentioned the guys that were ahead of me that helped me out as I was coming in. I can see that the donors and volunteers have just made a huge impact on some of the men, on the men ahead of me, and on the men that are coming into program and are starting to spend some time even at Aftercare. So I think just being able to see that direct impact on myself and on the other men has just been so huge. So I'll just say thank you for your servants' hearts.
Thank you, Joseph.
Joseph, I love the fact that you mentioned that the men who were in front of you kind of paved the way, but now you're paving the way. You're being that example. You're saying to the other guys, it's hard, but it's worth it.
Yes.
You know, and the fact that you discovered a secret about recovery, and that's community and friendship.
Absolutely.
And I think we would both say we're excited to see what God is doing in your life and that He's going to continue to do in your life.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You've seen today how UGM's programs holistically address the crisis that we are facing. And it's not even really an issue of being houseless, not even an issue of drugs. What we are finding is, if you peel that layer all the way back, there's a lot of trauma. And so we sit with the men and women and we work with them, and we're really on the back end of the story. We're helping to repair years of brokenness, years of destruction and grief and loss, right? And would it be, it's not anything we would want anybody to have to walk out. I have the opportunity to hear many stories, and I'm at aghast, and it just is so painful to hear what the men and women we serve, the things that they've had to go through, to walk through, perhaps the abuse, the trauma, and it's not anything we want anybody to go through. And so, Steve, here's the thing that I'm going to say. What would it look like if we didn't have to work with the men and women, that they were so well they didn't need us?
That would be wonderful. It really would. Joanne, I want to take a minute and pause for a second and say, I want to invite all of you in the audience. You've heard from Bianca, and she's here. And you could go and ask her a question. I'd encourage you to do that. Joseph's right here, and you could encourage and walk up to him. And here's why I wanted to stop for a minute. I just noticed that Ken's sitting right here, and I just would like Ken to stand. Just stand. He was the one on the video, and let's just celebrate him. I wanted you to see who he was. He's not just somebody on the video. He's a real story. I'd encourage you to go talk to him when we're done. So you were talking about not needing UGM, and that would be amazing, but that's not going to be the case. You know, there are kids in our communities who will someday come to UGM. Think about that. Kids in our communities who will come to UGM. And why is that? Because of the addiction, the trauma, the instability, the drugs in their families, in their homes, in their communities. You know, we're seeing addiction in these young people at a much earlier age. Think about it. Kids that are 12 and 13, they're addicted to things. And that's a tragedy. And what can we do? UGM, what we have is a program, a youth ministry outreach. And we are trying to help reach at-risk youth with trustworthy and supportive relationships. So we've got one last video, and it is at the grounds of our UGM camp, which is just above Reardon, Washington. It's a beautiful camp that the Lord provided to UGM 20 years ago. And you're going to meet our new youth ministry outreach director. Her name is Pam Johnson, and she's doing a phenomenal job. And she's going to be talking to Bella, a young lady who found hope and opportunity for growth and change through the programs that we have for youth in the public schools. So let's meet Pam and let's meet Bella.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Bella. I'm 14. I go to North Central High School. I met you guys at Young Club. It's an after-school program that Stevens does and some other elementary and middle schools do.
Were you nervous about signing up for camp?
I was nervous at first, but I knew how fun it was gonna be, and I was really excited to go out and just have a week to be able to go have fun. I was bullied a lot at school and stuff like that, and so when I went to camp, like, I always felt really safe because like no one would bully me or like try and hurt me here. Camp's always been kind of like my home, so I get really excited every time coming to camp.
Coming out to camp, what was that like that was different than you'd be doing back at home during the summer?
It was a lot of fun because I actually got to go out into nature and run around, but at home I was in a very small apartment and not in a very safe area when I was younger. It was like a relief. I got to go play and I got to have fun with people and friends even out of school.
What was your experience of camp like that first year? Your favorite things?
Going to the chapel and doing worship time because I really liked singing to the songs. We had dance and photography and art.
There's so many free time activities. What was the favorite thing to do with your cabin at free time?
Gaga ball, or we would go do a bunch of like random things in the field. We did a rock, paper, scissors one where we were different like characters and it was really fun. Or we did find the chicken.
Tell a little bit about the adventure course, which ones you did and what the kids liked or what they learned.
I got to help the kids work together because it was a lot and the kids were turning on each other, but at the end of it, we all worked together and figured it out, and we're all really happy.
So tell me, this is the big question. You're a camper and you're having all this fun, but then what part about that made you want to come back and then work in the kitchen and clean bathrooms?
I've always been really connected to camp, and like no matter what, I've always wanted to like be here because it feels like a safe place to me. So no matter what I'm doing here, no matter what I'm supposed to be doing here, I always feel happy and safe.
One of the cool things that UGM does is we partner with the local church, so the church is actually able to do the follow-up, which is huge. So talk about what it is to have those connections that have helped you grow through the last few years.
I've made connections with a bunch of people at youth group. Emily, she was one of my cabin leaders, and I still get to see her every once in a while, and I always greet her with a hug and say hi, and we talk a lot. Or Austin, he's been there since I was really young, and he's been there for me, and he's like one of my older brothers.
Talk to me about your memories as a camper. What did it look like for your cabin to come in and eat here in the dining hall?
I remember them being excited the first time we went through the dining hall because there was a lot of food, but some of them were seemed kind of nervous.
And what do you think made them nervous?
Maybe they don't have enough food at home, or if they don't see as much food as there was, they're scared if they take too much or if they don't take enough. But they got really happy and they loved sitting down all together because then it was like our little group and they got to all talk and be loud, and it was really fun for them.
What happens when they get to hear that they get seconds?
Some of the girls screamed, "We get seconds!" and got all really excited, so we all had to run to the line because they all darted. They didn't think that they would be able to get seconds. Last year we did pigs in a blanket, and almost all the campers loved those. They were all trading French fries for pigs in the blanket with each other. It was crazy.
What happens in the chapel? What does that look like?
We do worship in there, and we read parts out of the Bible in there.
And at the end of the week on Thursday, we share the gospel with them, what it really means to be a Christian, and give them the opportunity to do that. And so you did that in 2018. So I found yours, third grade, Isabella. What were you feeling? What were you thinking?
You make it to where campers that have never really had it can kind of understand it more, what it is to be a Christian and believe in God and follow Him. And I have believed in God ever since.
As a cabin leader, you got to do the same thing that your cabin leader did, which was you got to share the gospel and pray with them. What did that look like and feel like?
Almost all of them put sticky notes up. They just noticed how much it has made an impact on me and all the other camp leaders. And they know that it's a very powerful thing.
And you were telling me a little bit about your sister too, right? She
Yeah.
was a camper this last year for the first time, and you were saying, what
She
were you
was,
saying?
she was one of my campers, and every day almost she sings songs about it. She loves the songs. If I didn't have this camp experience, I wouldn't have had God, and I wouldn't be this close to God like I am, and I wouldn't be the person I am. And if I didn't have Him, and I didn't go to camp, my sister wouldn't have found Him, and it's something very powerful.
My hope is that God just continues to grow in your life and you really feel His presence and you are able to understand that God has a plan for you and a purpose for you, and the sky is the limit for what He has for you. So thank you so much for being here, hanging out with me. It's always fun to hang out with me, but I just really appreciate you, Bella. Thank you.
God really is in the business of life transformation, and we're so blessed in this ministry to serve alongside so many individuals and churches and businesses and schools. Speaking of Pam specifically, in just the last few months, or in the last few weeks, Pam and her team have helped our after-school program grow to where we now have 7 schools in the Spokane School District where we have clubs, and we're reaching these kids that don't know Christ. Isn't that exciting?
We definitely need to be there for our youth and their families if we're going to make a difference and if we're going to look at the impact of fentanyl and all the problems that these kids are facing today, and to be present. We talked about with the men and women we serve, we're kind of on the back end of the story, but isn't it beautiful to be able to get on the front end of it, to meet these young kids early, and to introduce them not only to Jesus, but to a community of support. I was at camp and I thought, what a wonderful place. Spend a whole week at camp, the river, just beautiful. It truly is a paradise. But to recognize it's not just a fun week for these children. We are connecting them with schools and resources, and so that they have the support in their own neighborhoods. And we get to work on the front end. I think that's just wonderful.
It really is amazing. And I think about this. Most of these kids, because of their family situation, they could never afford to go to camp. But because of your generosity in the community, all of them go for free. If they need clothes, a swimming suit, whatever, it's provided for them, a sleeping bag, and they get to go for free and spend a week with other people. And I just think it's an amazing opportunity. So together we can make quite an impact, as you've seen today. We all have a part, and we need you to ensure that there is a pathway out of homelessness, abuse, and addiction for all that we are serving. Before Phil comes back up to speak, we just want to take a few minutes and ask the Lord this question. Is there one thing or two things that you and I can do today to help make a difference? When you walked in, you received this card and this envelope. Is there anybody in the room that needs a card and an envelope? If you do, raise your hand and the ushers will make sure you have one. I just want to describe this and then we'll walk it through together. So on the card, there are 3 opportunities for you to say yes to being involved. The first one is just simply to sign up to receive stories, our blog. And if you check that, we'll put you on and we'll tell stories like you heard tonight. The second thing is we run by volunteers. This ministry happens because men and women and teenagers come and they volunteer. And would that be something that you would be interested in finding more about? And if it is, we want you to check that box. And there's a volunteer orientation we would invite you to where we can discover together if that is the next thing for you. The third thing is this. Maybe you came ready and willing to make a gift to UGM. And the envelope here, you could put some cash in, a check. There is a QR code that takes you to our landing page also that you can do it that way.
This is the part I'm excited about. It's spring, right? We didn't know that today, but it's spring, and we have 2 incredible baskets. We will be doing a drawing. One of them is a garden basket. The other one is for those of us who need to detail our car after this winter. And so, where's my envelope?
Your envelope is right here.
Oh, I need to make sure I put my name in the front.
Yeah, that's the one thing we're going to ask you to do. When you put all this in the envelope, we're going to ask you to seal it. So the question is, when we do the drawing, how do we know who's who? And so on the outside of the envelope, it says your full name. Now here's, Joanne, something that maybe you'll understand or maybe you'll be disappointed by. These gifts right here are for people that aren't our staff.
Oh.
And so, Joanne, I'm sorry. Unless one of you want to give it to her. So what we'd like you to do on the outside when we go through this together is put your name, and if you're staff, just write staff.
Or Joanne.
Or Joanne. You could do that. All right. So let's invite Phil up. Or no, I'm sorry. I need to do this first. My bad. So together, we are going to take the card, and let's do this together now. And the first box is your name. The second box is your email. The third box is your phone. The fourth box is your address, then city, state, and zip. And then at the bottom is 3 boxes, and you could choose 1 or 2 or all 3, or maybe none at all, and find out more later. So fill those out, and then if you want to give a gift, put it in the envelope, put the card in the envelope, and sign the outside. So would you do that right now? Seal the envelope, and we are going to pass them to the aisles. So I'm going to give you like a minute to finish that, pass them to the aisles, and then after Phil speaks, we're going to draw and see who the winners are for these 2 gift baskets. So the ushers are going to come, pass those envelopes to an aisle right now.
I forgot to mention that if somebody really doesn't want one of these baskets, we actually have a $35 gift card to the thrift store.
They can choose that instead. All right, do we have everybody's card? Okay, I would like to invite Phil Altmeyer back up, and we love hearing from him about what God is doing in the future.
I actually thought you were going to give away that motorcycle out there tonight.
Well, we could
I
do that.
saw Danny Beard eyeing it, and he hung around just so he could win it, but your staff, Danny, sorry. I wanted to express tonight my appreciation for Mark and Kathy Poe and Poe Asphalt, who for 20 years have sponsored this event for us. Next year, we're looking forward to celebrating going back to some hotels as we celebrate our 75 years, but they have been so faithful and committed to this ministry. And I tell them Poe Asphalt does more than pave roads. They make a difference in our community, and I'm grateful to them. I don't know, yeah, we can give them a hand. Sometimes these stories that you watch up here, they kind of move quickly and you may not have caught it, but did you catch how old Bella was when she made a decision at camp? 3rd grade. She's a sophomore now in high school. She's gone back and helped others, even saw her own sister come to know the Lord. When I was listening to the news this morning, they had a segment on KXLY, a long segment on the danger of what's on the internet and how it's affecting our youth. And I'm so grateful when I think of Bella, her sister, and families that are struggling with their parents and the situation they're in, that she has a church today, she has a foundation, and there's a difference in her life. And I love the fact that we can reach that generation. I want to take a minute, and we have been talking about what we're doing. I want to talk about what is ahead. And what is ahead is exciting to me because it's miracle story after miracle story after miracle story. And this is what's in store for us in the next year or the year after. And the first I want to talk about is the LC Valley. Now, I lived in Spokane all my life, and I didn't know what the LC Valley was, but it's Lewiston and Clarkston. And so it has been a journey. We had a board member that moved from Spokane to Lewiston, and he had a passion and a heart to see a mission there. And 5 years ago, the little mission that they got started, they came to us and said, we've done all we can. Can you help us? And they released what they had. And from that beginning stage 5 years ago to convince a city that a mission would happen, we will open this mission. I think the pictures are showing behind me. Are they? I'm looking up on the screen. It's blank. There we go. Well, I guess they're not showing. Oh, they are. Oh, I'm looking for them back here, and they're back here. Anyway, that'll be the new dormitory right there, and it's going to be unusual. We've never done this. It'll be men and women, but we've isolated the campus, and it's going to be for rescue and those that want recovery. We're going to send them to Spokane. I'm grateful to the Lord. I always say the easiest part is building a building. The hardest is getting the right staff. When I look back on Coeur d'Alene 13 years ago, God blessed us with Joanne, and that ministry has blossomed. And Jeremy Stevens will be the leader director of this ministry in Lewiston, and I'm excited about his heart, his passion, and the leadership that he will bring to serve in Lewiston. So that'll be taking place next October. That's a picture of what it'll look like when it's finished. It won't have the trees right away, but it's going to be a beautiful facility, and it's going to be an opportunity to reach an entire region that needs Christ. The next thing I want to talk about is, I'm waiting for the picture. If you look at this picture, that is our campus in Coeur d'Alene. And if you look at that yellow line there, that's bare ground, and right next to it, you see those 3 buildings? Those are the first transitional housing buildings that we had. They're 3 fourplexes. Since the time that we have had residents leave program and move into that housing, the difference in long-term recovery has been remarkable. As you heard, 5 years, someone that stays in recovery, our program's 18 months to 2 years, the difference those next 3 years make is significant. In the past, I know, Joanne, we watch people in Spokane too. They graduate, they go find housing somewhere. without the support around them, and guess what happens? It's difficult. And the difference it's made is incredible. And a group of people have been praying for that piece of property, that we would be able to build more housing. Well, let me tell you what God did. It's a miracle within a miracle. The people you know and who owned that property, we were able to purchase what you see there in the yellow. And a donor stepped up, gave us the funds to buy that property. And now that's just part of the story. The rest of the story is this. Bianca, someone else wasn't as fortunate as you that lived in Camp Hope, who went through recovery and when he came out, overdosed and died. His parents said, we know how important housing is and what we've seen happen in the ladies' lives that have had a place to go. And they gave us over $3 million to build 12 more units right on that property. And that will begin probably this year as well. And so again, I thank God for what we're going to be able to provide. And that restaurant, Tomato Street, that whole strip all the way up to Appleway is our property. We don't have access to the restaurant yet. It's on a lease, but we will someday. It's years down the road. But anyway, we're excited. We'll build 12 units this year and probably 12 units next year. And then this picture here is right across the street from Anna Ogden Hall, our recovery center here in Spokane, that house. And if you look at it, it's a big lot just like Ogden Hall. And there's space on that lot for us. We want to build a children's center for the children at Anna Ogden Hall. They're working out of an old house right next door, and it's not really that conducive. So that's something in the future that we want to be able to do. I also want to show you the next picture. This is the duplex that was remodeled, or did it already show? The duplex that we remodel, and we're able to provide more transitional housing for the women at Anna Ogden Hall right there. It's a beautiful 2 apartments. And then our crisis shelter over on Illinois, they're across the street. This house is right out the front door. Since we've moved in, a woman has lived there and had high school kids in and out, gangs, and it's just been a disaster. And we were able, through a generous donor, again, who purchased this home for us so that we could clean up the neighborhood and get rid of the people that were staying there. But more importantly, in our shelter, there's one thing that we're lacking, and that's a decent chapel. We're downstairs in a small room, and it's our desire to build a chapel on that, take the house out. If you saw it, you're not losing much. And so we will put a chapel there and be able to provide a facility that's more conducive to worship and for groups that come in and do chapel services every night. Then I also want to mention, I don't have pictures, but if you've been to the mission campus, you'll notice that the men have always entered on the east side of the building. And we purchased the building. We have a complete campus. We are going to move all the administration over to that building, and the men will now come and enter in where the park is. And the warehouse that's behind will be converted to honor the Dave Wall and his years of service with our ministry, and that will become the recovery center. So that's a remodel and adding on to the food and storage area that we'll be undertaking in the next year as well. And then lastly, again, I stand amazed how God just shows up and does one thing after another. And the other thing that he did is a gentleman came to us. He had visited the store in Hayden. He had dropped off donations. He was so impressed of how it was doing and what was happening there that he said, I want to talk to you about a building that I have up north that I think would make a great thrift store for you. Now, let me tell you, do I have any Chick-fil-A people here? Right next to Chick-fil-A, there's an empty lot that we purchased with a dream and a vision of putting a store up north, because we're not really reaching out to the north side of town, to Deer Park and those areas. So this gentleman comes to us, and he's got a building right on Division. I can't tell you the location, but I can tell you it's going to happen. We're ready to sign a lease, and it is ours. Well, when his builder called me, he says, I'll lease it to you for $1 a foot. And I said, we don't lease buildings. We own them. And he said, okay. And he called me back the next day. He says, Phil, I made a big mistake. He wants to lease it to you for $1 a year until the year 2054. $1 a year. And there's also another renter there that's paying $90,000 a year for part of that building that we don't need. And in 5 years, you can collect his rent. Now, is that a gift? And that's what God does. And so we will have a store, not starting probably next year. We'll inherit the building and stuff this year, but next year, that is something else we'll be working on. So to say that God is in the miracle business of providing so that we can continue to do more it's a miracle. I said, why do you want to quit doing something that you get to show up and see the miracles of God every day? Huh? Why would you stop? So praise the Lord as we look to the future. He's still in the miracle business, and I'm excited about the opportunities we have to grow and expand and do more of what we do to change lives. So thank you for your partnership to make that possible. And now we're going to see who gets the miracle baskets tonight, right, gang? So come on up and draw.
I don't think it's Joanne, is what I heard.
You know, I did forget one thing that I wanted to say. I wanted to acknowledge our staff that tonight when we have a program like this, there's a lot of work that goes into those videos, and the Marcom team did. And I just want to say thank you, gang, for the great job that you did. Thank you.
Thank you. Drum roll.
Why do they all say Joanne Zajac?
I'm well liked. Okay. Erica Gilio? Yay! Would you like the garden, the car detailing, or the gift card?
All right.
I can't read that.
Ginny D.O.
Yay, all right.
Okay. I think she wants the gift card, so we'll get that to her later. All right.
Let's do one more.
Okay, let's do one more.
Okay, one more. Someone will want the detail. I can tell you my card needs detailed. I can't read this either.
Susie Disted. Did I say that correct?
All right.
Come on up. Susie, how about a car detail package? What's that? She said fantastic. All right. Well, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for praying for UGM. Thank you for donating at the thrift stores. Thank you for donating a vehicle or a motorcycle or a motorhome or whatever to the motors. Thank you for purchasing. Thank you for donating financially. Thank you for donating with your time and volunteering. We are so grateful. It is a partnership to see lives changed, and we want to say thank you very much.
We also want to thank you for coming out this evening. And we are grateful that you are here and that you get to be a part of all the miracles that we hear that God is doing, because we can't do it without you. And so let's end by prayer. Would you mind praying for us?
I will. Father, thank you for a great time this evening. Thank you that you are in the business of changing lives and you're doing it. Lord, thank you for the ministry of UGM, for all the years, for the 75 years that you have shown up in your faithfulness. Thank you for Phil and Carol and Phil's leadership in this ministry, we are really blessed. Lord, it's been a great time. We want to go now with our hearts full, believing you for great things. In your name, amen. I'll just remind you to visit the booths out in the lobby. Thank you for coming. You're dismissed.